Hey everyone, now I was just thinking it's been a very long time since I've done a Q&A on the channel. A few years actually, and because I love helping you guys as much as possible, I thought it's about time I did one again. So recently I actually posted on my YouTube community page and on my Instagram stories asking if you had any questions you would like me to answer, and I got a ton of replies. Now unfortunately I can't answer them all, but I have picked 10 questions that jumped out to me, and today I'm just going to go through them. Let's jump right in. So the first question asks, I still have the Mavic 2 Pro. Would the Air 3S or Mavic 3 Classic offer a significant improvement in photo quality over the Mavic 2 Pro, or should I wait for the Mavic 4 Classic? So firstly, I wouldn't hold out on a Mavic 4 Classic. There's no guarantee we'll see a classic version of the upcoming Mavic 4 series. DJI might just simplify the range. Personally, I would pick up the Air 3S. Although the Mavic 3 Classic has a slightly larger 4/3 sensor, it still only captures 20 megapixel images, just like the Mavic 2 Pro. The Air 3S, on the other hand, not only captures beautiful 50 megapixel images, but you also get two different cameras, a wide angle and a 3x telephoto. And this just adds so much flexibility when taking photos, which is a big win in my book. So the next question asks, what would you be doing if you weren't on YouTube? What's your background? Great question. I don't think I've talked about my background or how this channel started at any point before, so I'll try to keep it short. So I was a freelance web developer for many years, but I always had a keen interest in photography and specifically capturing videos and photos with my drone. It was one of my hobbies. And unfortunately during COVID, like many people, my work kind of dried up. And being honest, I was struggling with the whole thing mentally a little bit. And so once the restrictions started to be lifted, and with all this new free time I had, I started going out and capturing more with my drone, and I was posting what I was capturing online to social media, and I was getting a ton of questions. Now initially I was answering them questions one-on-one, but then I thought, why not put up a few YouTube videos answering kind of the biggest questions I was getting? And after a few videos, being completely honest, the channel just kind of took off. Looking back at them early videos now, I do cringe a little bit. If anything, what was my hair doing? I think I just kind of hair dryered it up and then just hairsprayed the life out of it. Anyway, the channel's come a long way, and ever since I went full time on this channel, which I did a few years ago, it's completely changed my life, and none of that would have been possible without your support. Anyone who watches my videos, comments, likes them, asks questions, sends me messages, any of the success this channel has had, it's all down to you guys. So I truly cannot thank you enough. Next up, what ND filter do you use the most? Now this might come as a surprise, but I really don't use ND filters that often. In my opinion, you can skip them if you're flying at a high altitude, moving slowly, or not capturing fast moving subjects, which is primarily the kind of shots I capture. You will want them, however, if you are flying close to the ground, moving quickly, or capturing fast moving subjects such as tracking a car. And the reason for that is when you have a lot of motion in your footage, you will want natural, smooth looking motion blur. And the way you achieve this is by using a lower shutter speed. But lowering that shutter speed allows more light into the camera sensor, and so you will find your image becomes completely white and overexposed. So the way you get around this is using ND filters. You'll have heard this a lot, but they're essentially like sunglasses for your drone. And when you put that dark piece of glass in front of the camera lens, it lets in less light, allowing you to use that lower shutter speed to get that nice smooth motion blur, but still maintain a balanced exposure. Okay, so next question. How do I avoid seagulls while flying, and can you film in snowy weather? So that's actually two questions, so I'll break it down individually. In terms of how you avoid seagulls or birds in general from trying to attack your drone, I have a few tips that I follow. I fly a lot in coastal areas, and these tips have generally kept my drone completely free from any bird attacks. Firstly, don't fly in areas where there's nesting birds or lots of birds. If there is birds flying around, fly at higher altitudes. I find that seagulls tend to fly at lower altitudes. If you see a flock of birds, don't try to fly closer to them. It can be tempting, I know, to try to fly closer to a flock of birds because you think, oh, this is going to make this shot look amazing, but you're just increasing the chances of birds noticing your drone and therefore going to attack it. Also, if you're flying, keep a visual eye on your drone because it's next to impossible to see if a bird is circling your drone, getting ready to attack it from just the controller itself. Now, if a bird does go to attack your drone, most people recommend that counterintuitively you fly straight up. And that's for two reasons. Firstly, drones descend quite slowly, but also when a bird is attacking its prey, it doesn't expect it to rise straight up. So when you do this on natural motion, it can help the bird recognize that, oh, this is not something I want to be attacking, and that might keep it away. Lastly, if you're in an area where a bird just has it out for your drone, it's just continually trying to attack it, just land the drone and go somewhere else. It's not worth the hassle, it's not worth aggravating birds, and it's not worth potentially losing your drone. Now, the second part to that question was, can you film in snowy weather? Now, I actually have a full video going over 14 tips on how to fly in the snow and cold temperatures, and I'll put a link in the description down below where you can watch that. But a few of my key tips are, if it's currently snowing, so the snow is falling, I recommend you don't fly your drone, as that snow can get the drone wet very quickly, and they're not waterproof. If it has snowed and it's no longer falling, it's just lay on the ground, there's absolutely no reason why you can't fly your drone. I would recommend that you hand launch it. You don't want to put it down on the ground when taking it off, as you can get the bottom of the drone wet. And also, before you head out, make sure your batteries are 100% charged. You also want to keep them warm. Something I like to do is, whenever I'm walking from the car to where I'm going to take the drone off, I'll pop a battery in my pocket to warm it up. The reason for that is cold drone batteries will reduce the max flight time. Also, a crucial tip is do shorter flights. I like to bring the drone back often to check for things like propeller icing or fogging or condensation on the camera lens. The last thing you want to do is head out and capture lots of footage, come home and realize that your lens was fogged the whole time and you can barely see what you recorded. Also, don't fly if the temperature is below the recommended minimum for your drone. Now, this varies from drone to drone, so if you have a DJI model, you can go on their website and find out that information specific to the model you have. And lastly, just stay warm. If you're like me and your fingers get cold really easily, wear gloves, wrap up and stay warm, because if you're standing hurting because your hands are so cold, you're not going to be focused on getting the best shots possible. So make sure that doesn't happen and wrap up warm. Okay, next question. Can you do an up-to-date video going over all the best settings to use for the Mini 4 Pro? Yes, it's on my to-do list and I really do need to get it done because it's been a while since I put out my video going over the 15 settings you should change immediately for the Mini 4 Pro. And that drone has had a lot of firmware updates since then, so a lot of the settings have actually moved around. One of the functions that has changed that I'm actually not so keen on is the subject tracking feature, or focus track as DJI has renamed it. That's because it's now built into the active tracking feature. So whenever you draw a box over a subject to start tracking it, it automatically turns on. So once you stop tracking that subject, subject tracking has been enabled. And I'm really not keen on the subject tracking feature. And the reason for that is, if you're flying around an area with a lot of subjects that the drone recognizes it can track, your screen just becomes completely bombarded with them little plus icons. And this can make it hard to frame or compose your shots. Now before, whenever you went into the settings menu and turned it off, it stayed off permanently. But now you have to continually go in and turn it back off every single time you do tracking, and that's just really annoying. So I hope DJI changes that in the future and just brings back the setting we had before in the settings menu. Okay, next question. Can you perhaps make a video for the Mini 4K? So I actually recently just posted a video on my channel comparing the Mini 4K to the DJI Neo and going over the strengths and weaknesses of both of them drones. And I'll put a link down below where you can watch that video. But three things struck me about the Mini 4K. The first is that a surprising amount of people weren't even aware that it existed. I think a few people watching my comparison video wondered why I was comparing the Mini 4 Pro to the Neo, and rightly pointed out that that wouldn't make much sense, when in fact it was the Mini 4K. The second thing is, the footage from the Mini 4K is surprisingly good. That little drone punches way above its weight and way above its price point. In good lighting, you can get some fantastic shots with it. Thirdly, I did a little experiment recently. I took some of the best clips I'd captured with the Mini 4K and uploaded them to my Instagram stories. And I simply asked the question, what drone do you think captured this footage? And I got a ton of guesses. People were guessing the Air 3S, Air 3, Mavic 3 Classic, Mini 4 Pro, Mini 3 Pro. Do you know how many people correctly guessed the Mini 4K? 0. So I'll let you draw your own conclusions from that, and I'm keen to hear them. So please do drop a comment down below with what your takeaway from that is. But what I've took away from it is, if you're looking at a drone and you're only planning to upload your clips to social media, because by the time they get compressed down when you upload them, it's hard to tell the difference between footage from a budget drone and footage from a larger, more expensive drone, then you probably don't need to spend as much as you think you do. Okay, next question. What's your current go-to drone? So at the minute, I would say I have 2 go-to drones. 80% of the time, or the majority of the time, I'm using the Mini 4 Pro. For what I do, which is where the footage ends up on YouTube, it's more than good enough. And also, if you hike up to your locations or you come to more remote places and you carry around a massive backpack full of camera gear and you're over 30, you will probably have been introduced to a fun little thing called back pain. So being able to pack lighter and use smaller drones is very beneficial. My second current go-to drone, and I would say I use this one about 20% of the time, is the Air 3S. If I'm heading out and it's a much windier day where I know the smaller Mini 4 Pro will struggle, then I'll take the Air 3S for that improved performance, that better wind resistance. And also, if I'm heading somewhere and I know I want or need the highest image quality possible, then I'll also take the Air 3S. The quality you can get from that drone and the dynamic range is frankly superb. And also you get the 2 cameras, the wide angle and also the 3x tele camera, that just allows you to get more creative with the footage you're capturing. Okay, next question. How do I get high quality uploads on Instagram? I would say this is the question out of them all that I get asked the most, and it's a real concern because you go to the effort of going out and capturing beautiful drone footage, but then when you upload it to Instagram to share with your friends and let them see it, Instagram compresses it down and it looks horrible and low quality. So I have 3 tips that should hopefully help you get higher quality uploads. Firstly, export the footage at 1080p. Now this might sound counterintuitive, but I've found compared to uploading 4K footage, Instagram will compress it less. Secondly, export with a target bitrate of 45 megabits per second. Now some might say that's too high, but that's what I use and I've been getting pretty good results. Lastly, whenever you're out on location capturing the footage, do slower drone movements. In my experience, I found that Instagram will compress your footage more if there's faster movement in it. So if you want the highest quality uploads possible, stick to doing slower, smooth movements. Okay, last question. Do I have any information on the upcoming Mavic 4 Pro? I don't, unfortunately. I try not to read any of the leaks nowadays, and I'm aware there's quite a few out there, primarily because I don't want to get confused. I don't want to end up in a situation when I'm reviewing the product that I say a wrong specification because I'd read it previously on a leak. So nowadays, I just don't really look at them. But I do think we will probably see that drone appear in the first half of next year. So hopefully some of these answers and my thoughts have helped you out, and I'm really sorry if I didn't get a chance to answer your question, but I've had a lot of fun doing this, so I will be doing this again in the future, and I'll try to get round to them unanswered questions. If you have any questions yourself that you would like me to answer, maybe there's something you want to know, please drop a comment down below, and I'll also try to get round to them in an upcoming video. Now just before you go, if you've liked this video and you've learned something new, please let me know by giving a thumbs up and clicking that like button down below. And if you love all things drones, but also action cameras, gimbals and more, and want to know things like the best settings you should be using and tips and tricks to get better looking images and videos with your gear, then please consider subscribing by clicking that subscribe button down below. And when you're down there, be sure to check the notification bell so that you will be alerted when my new videos are released. It would be greatly appreciated. And if you want to stick around and watch a few more now, here's a few I personally recommend. I'll not keep you back any further. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll catch you over there.